Hi guys, today I'm going to be interviewing Sir Michael Rawlins, also known as my grandpa. So, grandpa, how many wars have you lived through? Isn't like COVID-19, World War II and all that sort of stuff? How many?
How many what?
Wars, isn't like World War II, COVID, the Ice War, or something like that?
Well, I was born in 1941 during the
World War
early
II.
part of World War II. My father was a clergyman, and he joined the Royal Artillery Regiment and went out to France in 1940 and was rescued from Dunkirk in 1940. He came back, he married my mother, and I was born the next year. And I don't remember really anything about the Second World War.
Because you were very young.
I was very young, yes. I was only 4 when it finished. And of course I wasn't alive in the First World War. Because I wasn't even born.
You'd be over 100, wouldn't you?
I would be. But my grandfather Rawlins, he fought in the First World War, and he was killed in the First World War. Missing, presumed dead. And he and my grandma had 2 children. My father Jack, who's the vicar, and my auntie Alice. They were about 4 and 2 when my grandfather Joseph Rawlins was missing, presumed dead. Because he was missing, my grandmother didn't get any pay, and he was only presumed dead, so she didn't get a war pension. So she had no money coming in at all. So she had to go back to the shop where she had been working in, and eventually she had to ask the War Office to declare him dead so that she could at least get a pension. Terrible, isn't it, really? But she always hoped that by some miracle, Joseph would come back. And my auntie Alice, who's no longer with us, told me a story about how on one occasion there was a knock on the door, and this was in 1920, 1921, and there was somebody they could see through the frosted glass, somebody in uniform, and she thought that this was Joseph come back again by some miracle. But when they opened the door, it was just a friend of his who was knocked on her door to just see how she was. Sad.
That would have been like a really nice reunion, wouldn't it?
Sorry?
That would have been like a really nice reunion.
It would have been, wouldn't it? Yes.
Just coming out of the mess.
Yes.
But,
so what else do you want to ask me about?
That plane thing that you were talking about us before we started the interview.
What, the plane crash?
Yeah. Don't know.
Well, when I was at school, we all had to join what we called it the Corps, but it was technically the Combined Cadet Force, the CCF. And I joined the RAF section, and not really at that stage because I was particularly interested in the RAF, but if you stayed in the army, you spent every Friday afternoon parading, square bashing as we used to call it, doing left turn, right turn and so on. Whereas if you did join the RAF section, you spent most of the afternoon inside learning about navigation and things like that. So I joined the RAF section, and after 2 or 3 years I discovered that the RAF you could get a flying scholarship, which meant that the RAF would pay for you to learn to fly at a private a private flying club, not an RAF station, but a flying club, civilian flying club. So I applied, and I had to be interviewed and all that sort of stuff, but I got in it, and so I went to Wolverhampton Flying Club, where I learned to fly. in order to get a private pilot's license, you had to do, you know, a fair amount of flying. You had to do about 30 hours. You also had to do some exams on navigation and meteorology and things like that. And the last thing you had to do was to do cross-country flights solo. So I had to fly from Wolverhampton to Derby. I didn't have to land in Derby. I just had to circle Derby and then go to Stafford, and then circle Stafford, and then come back to Wolverhampton. I found Derby all right. That wasn't a problem. So I took the bearing to Stafford, and I couldn't find Stafford. And I could, as I kept on going, I knew how long it should have taken in. And then I could see the hills in the distance that looked a bit like Wales, so that wasn't much good. So I eventually decided I'd better turn and hope to find my way back to Wolverhampton. So I took the final bearing, but it was getting rather late in the day, and I hadn't got a lot of fuel left, and I couldn't find Wolverhampton at all. So eventually I thought I'd better land on the field. And you know, I'd been told how to land on a field, and you found a nice field, so I landed on a nice field. When I landed, I suddenly realised there was an electric fence across the middle of the field. You couldn't see for the air, so I took off, and I found another field, and then I landed and discovered that this field was a slope, and I wasn't sure whether I could brake in time or I couldn't. So I sort of was indecisive, and eventually I realised I wasn't going to brake in time, so I took off. And as I took off, one of the wheels of my aircraft caught a tree and slewed me round the top of a hill into a newly sown potato field. And I had a very soft landing, nose down, and I jumped out of the aircraft because you were told, you know, if that ever happens, get out as quick as possible in case it blows up or it goes on fire. The first thing that happened was there was some fire engines came, and then an ambulance, and I had to go. They took me to hospital. There was nothing wrong with me at all. So that was fine, really. I was bloody lucky. Sorry, I was very lucky. And then the flying club had to tell what had happened to the RAF, and the RAF sent a wing commander up, or some officer, a fairly senior officer, to find out, to hold an inquiry, and I explained what happened. And he was very decent about it. He said, awfully bad luck. Could have happened to anyone. Two things, he said. First of all, I'm asking the chief instructor to convert you to Tiger Moths, which is a biplane, because there's only one Chipmunk, which is the aircraft I was flying. And secondly, he said, I've got a tie for you. And I said, he said, you're the youngest member of the Cat 5 Club. I said, what's the Cat 5 Club? He said, it's people who have rendered aircraft Category 5, total write-off. So that was my flying history.
What was your favourite part about the flying?
Sorry, my favourite?
Part about the flying.
Was my favourite part?
Yeah.
Oh, the wing commander. Awfully bad luck. Could have happened to anybody.
So, how many awards have you got from the Queen?
How many awards? 2.
What have you got them for?
Well, for basically for medicine. In 1999, I was made a Knight Bachelor, and then in 2017, I was made a Knight Grand Cross of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire, GBE. There are lots of Knight Bachelors, but there are only 5 medics who've ever been made GBE, and I'm one of them. Aren't I lucky? That's
a very small amount. So you must be very good at your job.
People were very kind. When I first got knighted, so that was Prince Charles, and the second time it was the Queen. Your mum was there,
for the second time.
and the first time, weren't you? Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. But one of the interesting things is that the
Second was my favourite.
Why?
Queen.
the interesting thing is, well, what is interesting? You go down on one knee, and you get tapped on the shoulder, both shoulders. But you only going to do that once in your lifetime. So when I became a Knight Grand Cross, I didn't have to do any kneeling down or anything, because I'd already done that in
The first
1999. Last time.
So it was, and was it Charles that did the 19?
99 one, yes. Yes, that's right. I think we've done enough, haven't we?
Yeah. Thanks for watching. Hit the thumbs up and subscribe for more. Bye.